Welcome, everyone. My name is Sean Shaw, and this is Vanguards of Democracy. Our guests today each represent the next generation of leaders in Tampa Bay, driving ahead to a position of authority in their respective fields with so much of their career still ahead of them. I'm happy to announce that I'll be joined by Reverend Norman Harris, also known as Attorney Norman Harris, to talk about community-based representation in law, something that we at Vanguard Attorneys also place at the forefront. But first, I'm here with my good friend, Bemetra Simmons, President and CEO of the Tampa Bay Partnership, big deal, to discuss the impact that her organization has had on the Bay Area and where she hopes the future will take them. That interview starts right now, so don't miss a minute of it. All right, this is Sean. Welcome to Vanguards of Democracy. Appreciate you joining us. I've got someone, you always say, this is my good friend. You always hear somebody say, but I really mean it this time. This is not just a colleague. This is not just someone that I've known. This is my good friend, Bemetra Simmons. Bemetra, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited
to be here.
You know how
preachers be like, I want to bring up my good friend, and
I never met this guy.
This is legitimate. This is legitimate friendship here. And Bemetra, I just want the people to get to know you. You are a super impressive person just because for a lot of reasons. But I want just talk about kind of growing up, where you grew up, how you got to Tampa, what job brought you to Tampa.
Sure.
So people know how cool you are.
So thank you so much. And I feel excited to be here. Honored that you think I'm cool.
On camera.
I know, right? Yeah. Now it's done. It's forever and ever. Amen. So I'm actually a military kid. So my dad was in the Air Force. So I grew up in about 10 states. We lived overseas. We lived in the Northeast, West Coast. I went to 3 different high schools. Both of my parents are originally from Memphis, Tennessee. So we would spend summers with my grandparents, which was an incredibly unique way to grow up. So we might be living in Wyoming at the time and then spend 3 months in Memphis, which very, very...
I was about to say, that's the cultural...
Yeah, very, very
right.
different, but also gives you a very big appreciation for different parts of the world and different parts of life. After graduating from high school, I went to college in Memphis to be around family and extended relatives, cousins, that type of thing. Actually went to school on basketball scholarship just like you did. So played ball at a little Division II school. Then ended up going to business school in North Carolina, and that's how I got into banking. Is once I finished my MBA from Wake Forest. Go Deeks. It's tournament time. I'm not sure if you guys know that, but that's an important time. It's like Christmas for us basketball fans. And then banking, I really just developed a passion for it. So it allowed me to work with business owners, first, generation entrepreneurs, third generation entrepreneurs, wealth management. It really ran the gamut. I did everything from business banking to wealth management, corporate banking, and managing teams doing such. My actual introduction to Tampa is I came here for Women's Final Four in 2008. That is the last time that or most recent, I don't want to say last because it implies we won't win another championship, that my beloved Lady Vols won. And, had never been to Tampa, didn't know anything about it, but remember thinking, what a cool city. It's beautiful. It's 73 degrees and sunny. It's early March. Like, who doesn't like that? And then I had an opportunity to come back here in November of 2011. The bank had promoted me to come and run our Hillsborough market. So that's how I got to Tampa Bay. I've been here about 10 years now. Love it. Ironically, being a military kid, this is the longest place I've ever lived anywhere. I think of this now as my forever home.
And I was introduced to you. I don't know who did it. I don't know if Alex Sink was involved, but
I think Ben introduced us. Ben Diamond.
I think you are right. Yeah. It was Ben Diamond. But I was immediately struck because you kind of glossed over it. It was a super important job. Like I work for the bank here in Hillsborough County. Slow down, Bemetra.
Yeah.
I want you to say the title of it and the bank as it existed back then, because I know it's gone through some changes. But you were in charge of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So I was essentially the face of the bank in Hillsborough County. So Hillsborough County market president. So everything that we did in the county, business banking, commercial banking, mortgage lending, cash management, everything that the bank did ran through my leadership. It was also an important role at the time because BB&T had taken over Colonial Bank. Colonial Bank had failed. And so we also, one of the bigger reasons I was sitting here, not only to run operations, was to infuse the BB&T culture into Florida because we did not have legacy BB&T people in Florida at that time.
But you were the president for this area, and that's a huge deal. And because there's not a lot of black people, certainly not a lot of black women.
There are no college students
leadership.
that when they think they're market president, they don't think of a young black female.
Bingo.
It's going to be their boss.
And I didn't think that's who I was meeting. And so that's why it's super impressive.
Let me introduce you to this bank president. Well, when are they coming?
Right. So what you doing here? You here to meet him too?
Oh, are you his assistant?
That's why it's impressive. And you've gotten so involved here in the community and done a lot of high profile things. You're working right now in a job that is different, but no less prestigious. And so you're at the Tampa Bay Partnership. You're the president and CEO. What is the Tampa Bay Partnership?
Great question. So I'm so excited about this role. The partnership is a coalition of businesses and not-for-profit organizations that advocate for the most important issues that affect our region. So transportation that connects our counties, workforce development, housing affordability, future of baseball, the impact of sea level rise to our community, the impact of the opioid crisis. So it is essentially the intersectionality between business, government, and community. Well, our work is done in this way. We are data-driven, so we have something called the Regional Competitiveness Report. We put that out on an annual basis. It has about 60 different attributes.
It's a great report.
It's awesome, right? Drills it down by the county level through the 8-county region on everything from how are we doing in educational attainment, how are we doing in housing affordability, how are we doing in cultural attractions, how are we doing in transportation options, distribution of wealth amongst race by county, and then how is Tampa Bay region doing against Nashville? How are we doing against Seattle? So it compares us against 19 peer and aspirational markets. So markets that we consider our peers. And then we take that data, elevate the issues, and see how we can help us move up the food chain and improve. And then we do that work through public policy, thought leadership, and advocacy. So what I'm really working at doing in the 4 months that I've been in the role is to take all of that rich data now that we've been doing that for 5 years and we have trends and go from being a think tank to a do tank, right? And so I'll use the work right now that we're doing in the opioid crisis, for example. We have a simple but lofty goal of reducing the number of residents in our community that are experiencing an overdose or addiction relative to the opioid crisis. So some advocacy work we're doing on fentanyl testing strips in Tallahassee, making it more punitive for people to be able to sell around a sober house, things like that. All these different things, reducing the barriers to treatment for people to be able to get in. So, people think of it as like, okay, not just the business community, but things that affect our entire community. Also, what makes us a little more unique than, say, a chamber or an EDC, we're 100% privately funded. So we don't take any public dollars whatsoever. We want to do that so we can have independent leadership and we can really be regionally focused and not be too embedded to one county or one city or another, depending on how they affect our budget, things of that nature. And then our investors are all chief executives or regional leaders. So at a chamber, for example, you can choose to put a relationship manager to sit on your board. At the partnership, it's all pure level. So you need to be the CEO of your company or the regional president of your bank or the managing partner of your law firm for this region, that type of thing. So it's a pure C-level connection.
Well, and one of the things I just want to point out is that you being the president CEO of an organization that consists of these CEOs.
CEO of CEOs.
CEOs of CEOs,
right,
and being a black woman is a big deal, and it's important, and we need to recognize that because oftentimes that doesn't happen. A lot of times, I'll go on my mini rant here, but black people, they love to make us, grassroots head or head of community engagement or something like that. Mm-hmm. But to be the CEO of CEOs, Bemetra, it says something about you.
Thank you.
But it also says something about them that they did that.
I think it says something about all of us. I think it also says something about our community.
Yes.
Right? And that we are serious about. We don't care about your background or your age or ethnicity, sexual orientation. If you can do the job, you're going to be welcome.
I said this on a show we just had earlier today. The corporate culture in Tampa, I think, is good. I think we have good corporate 100%. Neighbors that want to do well. Sometimes we need to give them opportunities to do well and point them to places that are the right place to go. But they want to do good and they want to be involved. And I really like our corporate culture.
I think so too. And as an adult, I've lived in Memphis, Charlotte, Atlanta, now here. hands down the friendliest and most engaged business community I've ever been a part
Oh,
of.
wow.
And, people, we have a lot of homegrown Tampa Bay,
Right.
residents or just native Floridians. So they don't always know that, right? Because this is all, people know, but it's really a magical place where we live.
I am one of those native Floridians that don't know nothing outside of the.
That's not true. You went to college in the
I
Northeast.
mean, I went to college, but I'm a native Floridian. I came back because
Yeah.
I'm too country to live up north. Talk to me about why you went from banking to the partnership. That's a big transition. Or what happened?
So, like all good people who turn 40, you think about like, what do I want to be when I grow up? And am I on the life plan that I set for myself as a 10-year-old? And in many ways I was in terms of working in banking.
That's impressive.
Right,
because
right.
most of us, that turns into a midlife crisis.
But what I wanted to do, Sean, is really connect everything that I was doing in the community to what I was doing professionally. Because I would have days, and I'm sure you know what this is like being an attorney, where I remember I had a day where I had a chamber meeting in the morning and like a housing authority meeting. Then I grabbed myself something to eat. I didn't get to my office till 1:00. And then in my mind, I'm like, we haven't worked yet. We haven't, done any loans or deposits or fee income, right? So this job allows me to put all those things into one collective deal. The second thing that I think is really attractive about this is, you have a voice in what our region not only looks like today, but what is it going to look like 20 years from now? What is it going to look like 30 years from now? And instead of being on the sideline and calling you when I see knucklehead things happen in our community, like, Sean, why are they doing this? We have a lot of those conversations. It's like, well, why don't I get in the game and be a part of being a part of the solution to make things better?
It is. I mean, that's a similar answer as to why I got into politics. You get to some extent be involved. Even though, you get cussed out all the time, like I know you do, at least you get involved.
You have to have thick skin to do these roles.
I told someone the best part of not being elected is I get to go to Publix and y'all got to leave me alone. Y'all can't go. Why you ain't?
I always joke, like, I would never want to be on city council. It's too close to the people.
Right. Like at least Tallahassee, I got to get away.
Yeah, it's too close to the people.
Man,
no disrespect to our city. That's saying the amount of respect I have for our city council members.
Because they're here and the county commission. Like, that's right. Tallahassee. No one knew who you were in Tallahassee, but the minute I came back, y'all was cussing me out at my Publix about stuff I'd done right.
Right. You're like, no, we actually did that.
I actually voted.
We actually did that. I voted for that. Yeah.
But that's the nature of the beast. Let's talk about some specific issues if you can. And one that's near and dear to me is transit.
Mm-hmm.
I was honored to be on the IOC, which was the committee that was instituted to determine how to spend that penny tax before the court told us that we should not have existed to start with. So I assume that tax is going to be back on the ballot too. And the reason I was so disappointed by the court's ruling, one, I thought it was legally suspect, but two, I had direct knowledge of what projects were getting done and what great things were being done with the money and what was being improved and where it was being improved. Because you can best believe that when people presented to me that I was like, is this money being equitably spent
make sure it's equitable
in all parts of Tampa? They
100%.
got used to that question, so they were prepared when they had the things. But what are we doing about transit? Let's assume that, we get that penny. How are we, because the worst part about Tampa Bay is the traffic. Mm-hmm. And you don't fix traffic, in my opinion, by building more roads.
Right. No.
You got to get cars off the road.
Sure.
What are we doing about transit?
So I think it is the number one priority for the partnership. There's a couple things that we're doing. One, we still haven't given up on the 41-mile RRT. We think that rapid bus trans system. That is huge. It is a project that would connect 3 counties. It would connect Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough. So
that's a ton of cars.
That's a ton of cars. I think, to back myself up just a tad, we have to get out of the mindset that when we're ready to go somewhere, we need to grab our keys. And I do think that with Uber and Lyft, it's helping with that mindset. People in the Northeast and Midwest, this is it's not a Tampa Bay problem, an issue that we have here. Other things that the partnership is doing specifically is we want to have good regional projects that can connect to something locally. I agree. We can't solve our transportation issues by having a pandemic and people just being at home. Yeah. Like that's not a transportation plan. And then also we cannot let perfect get in the way of good. And that's what we've done. We're like, well, what about this? What about that? We need to press as many levers as we can. So, and then what we want to do, obviously, because we've got over 40 companies that represent about 80,000 jobs in our region, is we want to have a voice on the people who are on the transit agencies that make some of these decisions, right? So that we have what we feel are people who look at things from a regional standpoint and are not so parochial that we can't, get things done. So whether that looks like, having a voice, at least being a resource in who's on T-BARTA or some of these NPOs or PSTA or HART or whatever that may be, and making sure that we get folks who we feel are reasonable in the way that they're looking at things. But like you said, Sean, we need to advocate for, every kind of mobility option and transit option you can think of. Right now, we are 19th out of our 20 markets that we compare ourselves against in transportation options, right? And so we'll just take Hillsborough, for example. If you need to ride the bus to get to work, Hart's bus lines run in 1 hour increments. That is not anywhere close to what you would need to do. And they don't have enough routes. And not because the Hart people aren't good at their job. They're just woefully underfunded, right? And so we have to, buses are not sexy, but they're necessary, if that makes sense.
That determines where you can live.
That 100%.
If you have to take the bus to get to work, you've now limited where you can live in this community or what job you can take.
Or what job you can take, right? And so then if we talk about looking at ourselves from an economic mobility standpoint, if I live in, say, East Tampa and I don't have a vehicle, that means I can only work where I can walk or ride my bike to. That is severely limiting my job options, whereas we had a robust transit system.
Meanwhile, Charlotte got a train.
Right, that you could get on and get out to West Shore to work, or you could get downtown to work. That's a game changer, right? And then that will help. We're always saying our wages are not keeping up with our housing prices. That would help with those types of things, right? Does that make sense?
No, and it helps your corporate members
100%,
because they can get, you want an employee base.
You want an employee base, right? You want them to be able to get to work and not be stressed out or not take an hour and a half or have to live so far out, And if they do have to live far out, they have a train or a bus or something they can get in to get to. Yeah.
Let me ask about one of the issues that stood out to me when I was reading the report that you all do, and I mentioned it. It is the disparity as it relates to race in wealth and income in the Tampa Bay region was stunning. I didn't know it was that bad.
It is that bad.
What do we do about that?
I think we have to back all the way up to education. I mean, I think that is creating the biggest equity gap that we have. If you look at educational attainment between the races, everything from kindergarten readiness to reading on a third grade level to high school graduation rates to, percentage of our region that has degrees. We don't necessarily need everybody to get a degree. That is not the magic formula to getting people advanced from an economic standpoint, but we do need to get people skills so that they can get better jobs, so that they don't have three, tourism jobs, if you will, and they still can't make ends meet. So I think until we attack, which is our second most important issue, which is workforce development and education, and we divided ourselves into two groups. One is going to look at it from a long-term planning, kindergarten through 12th grade, and then the second group is going to look at it from we need to get people to work now, get them upskilled now. And we think a big key to that is, getting folks certified, in various things, whether it be welding or utility line management. As my dad used to joke, well, not joke, but tell us when I was a kid, careers are one word and jobs are phrases. I'm an educator, I'm a barber, I'm a cosmetologist, I'm a banker, I'm a lawyer, I'm a customer service representative. I work in the appraisal department at so-and-so. So we got to give people careers.
Right. No, I agree. Let's talk about the raise, and I'm not going to get you in trouble.
I'm not going to let you get me in trouble.
This is the most super secret issue I always bring up to whether it's a city councilman or a county commissioner. Let's talk about the raise just a little bit. What's the process? Where is the process at now? Where are we at right now generally? And what's the future hold in terms of how that process might go?
So first, I don't have any super inside baseball, but I'm pumped.
Nice.
But I can tell you from the most recent presentations that I've been in, from leadership within the raise and the conversations that we've had around the table at the partnership, everybody seems to be still committed to keeping the raise here in Tampa Bay. I don't know that there is a definitive plan about how we go about doing that, right? In terms of money, right? And it's really, a little interesting in that it appears that Pinellas has a strategy for the money, but they don't have a location. And Tampa's like,
The opposite,
we
huh?
have a location and we don't have a
Yeah.
money strategy. And you can't do one without the other, right? My understanding is that the Rays, from the partnerships perspective, we want the Rays to stay in the Tampa Bay region. We think not only is it an important, quality of life issue, but it's an important economic development issue and an economic mobility issue. If you look at what's going on right now with just baseball in general, forget the Rays not playing. Spring training is a big economic driver for our community. That's small. That's not just you and I getting an opportunity to go to games. That's small businesses that have make money off of that. That's not happening right now. That's no different than when we didn't get to do things because of the pandemic. This is yet another thing we don't get to host. We don't get to do. So the partnership wants to see the Rays stay here. We want to be helpful in any way that we can to help them stay here in the Tampa Bay region.
You need to run for office, that kind of answer, because that was a bunch of that was really good.
If I knew the answer, I would tell you.
I hear you.
If I knew the answer, I'd be a much richer
because I think
woman.
there is no
Right?
answer. I think you're right. There is no answer. I think
right.
you're right. The powers that be.
I mean,
in the two areas
I
are trying
think
to
the
figure it
difference
out.
between where we are today and where we were in November is that the Rays are now talking to everyone again. And when I say everyone, they're talking to Hillsborough County, they're talking to St. Pete. Whereas before, I think they were just talking to one or the other. Now they're like, we have to date everybody because we've got to come up with a solution.
That's what dating is.
That's what dating is. That's right.
Can't be monogamous if you're dating. That's why you got to tell everybody. I agree. Financing of stadiums and how you do it is really complicated.
It is.
There's a lot of issues of equity involved. There's a lot of politics involved too, and it's just hard. That's a lot of money.
Anytime someone suggests that they can take $1 billion problem and Fisher Price it, I will be leery of that.
You need to be leery of it,
right? Because it's such a complex thing. That's right.
These things are complex.
100%.
And they're just hard, and it's equity, and where are you going to put it? And
right.
Is everybody going to benefit from it?
And there is no solution that you come up with where every single person is going to be excited.
Yeah.
That's just not the case. Yeah.
I don't even like baseball, so why are we doing it? Like that?
Right.
There's people out
when
there
we
that don't
gonna
care.
get an NBA team?
There's people that don't even care. What is the, if I take away transit, because I think that's the answer to the question I'm about to ask, what's the one thing that maybe is holding us back from being on that? We're pretty close, if we're not there already, but what's the one thing holding us back from being in that tier one community?
I think thinking of ourselves as one team, regionalism. I like to use sports analogies.
Tampa versus St. Pete versus
all of it, right? Yeah, that's
Bay.
exactly right. So I tell people when you play basketball, you're not on the point guard team. You're not on the power forward team. You're on whatever the jersey you have on. You're not even on offense or defense. Like right now, we're in many ways, and we get better at it. And then we have a bad actor that does something, and then all of our hurt from 20 years ago comes up, and people crawl back into their shells. I took about 12 of our investors up to Tallahassee a couple of weeks ago, to talk about what we want to get done, our agenda. And I asked the question, what can we do better? And they said, we can speak with one voice. And one of the legislators shared with us that I thought was very poignant was he used Miami-Dade as an example. He said that when they come up to Tallahassee, they are not Republican. They are not Democrat. They are not Broward. They are not. They are like, we are Miami-Dade, and whatever color that is, that's who we are. That's what we need to do. And when we do that, we have success. The West Shore Interchange is a great example of that. We had so many groups in Tallahassee advocating for that project, the Tampa Bay Partnership, Tampa Bay Chamber, West Shore Interchange. And so it was very clear to our legislators what was important to us, right? And I'm not just from a transportation, but so I think until we all decide, the people who are in these roles that are key, that we are the Tampa Bay region, and what we're trying to do is outpace Charlotte, and what we're trying to do is outpace Jacksonville. Until we think that we're one another's competition, we're going to be in trouble. So when I was a kid, I told you I grew up everywhere, and we were living in Atlanta at the time. My dad was in seminary, and I was telling him how I had aced this, made the best score in fourth grade to do something. And, I'm really proud of myself. And my dad says, oh, you think these kids at your school are your competition? That's not your competition. Your competition is the smartest fourth grader around the country.
Right.
And we're confused about who our competition is, right? At times. So I think that's our biggest.
That's a really good point.
That's our biggest threat,
particularly as it relates to transit.
100%.
Because transit helps St. Pete, it helps us, it helps
and
Plant City,
so
it helps.
I'll give you
Largo,
I'll give you an
it helps
example. Omaha, Nebraska, Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's another obscure city that's like population wise bigger than the city of Tampa. The difference is they're not surrounded by anything else in the way the city of Tampa is, right? So we can't just make decisions as a 400,000, resident city. We have to make decisions that look like being a part of the hub of our region. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
30 minutes away at St. Pete.
And then most people, a lot of our residents move around the counties. Like it's just rare for you to spend a month. There are people who do it, but a lot of people not so much where you're like, I'm just in Hillsborough County. I'm just in Pasco. I'm just in Pinellas. For 30 straight days. You didn't touch another county.
30 days in Pasco? I'm about to get in trouble with some viewers. But I heard
studio audience, Sean said that.
You got to move around. That's the point.
That's my point. You got to move around.
Demetra, I appreciate you coming on, and I know you're a busy person, so get back to making sure that we keep the raise and do all that in transit, and I appreciate you, and we'll have you back because these issues are going to rear their heads again, and they're going to be more specifically defined, I bet, as we go forward, and I'd love to talk to you about it, all right?
100%.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for being on Vanguards of Democracy. Welcome to Vanguards of Democracy. This is Sean Shaw, and I'm here with someone who I know in a lot of capacities. He is an attorney, he's a pastor, he's a new dad, a relatively new husband. Norman Harris, I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
And listen, I know you and your wife just had a baby, so I know that I got to get you in and out of here so you can at least get some sleep, brother. But you have been doing a lot, not only in the community, but certainly personally. And I just wanted to catch up on where you're at. During the pandemic, I read somewhere that you had a love affair that blossomed during the pandemic. It might have been highlighted in a magazine somewhere. Talk a little bit about how you met your wife and that journey.
So, let me start by saying it happened at a time least expected.
It always does.
As a matter of fact, we were introduced through a mutual friend, and we made our first contact via social media in April. And it was during the month, I believe, of the shutdown in 2020.
April 2020.
Yes, sir.
That's the middle of the pandemic.
Yep. So, I guess I was just home trying to comply with state and local rules, and reached out to who is now my wife on social media, and we had several conversations via social media. And the interesting thing, actually, we didn't have our first telephone conversation until May, the Saturday before Mother's Day. I think it was like the 9th or the 10th that year.
Right.
And we didn't see each other in person until July of that year.
Were y'all Zooming or doing any FaceTime or none of that?
No FaceTime, no Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Between April and May, just social media. Between May and July, just telephonic.
Right. I'm getting all in your business out. Where was the first date?
The first date was in Orlando, very untraditional. I remember I had a press conference for a case that I'm working in Jacksonville, and she called me that day. Let me back up and say she had gotten COVID, and during the month of June, she battled with COVID. And July, around the 8th, she had gotten her clearance, I guess, the second test, and she just called me randomly and said, hey, you want to hang out today? Let's go to Orlando. And I said, I got a press conference.
Like, yes, ma'am. I'll figure this out.
I got a press conference, but as soon as the press conference is over, we'll do it. Yeah, so it was very sporadic and unconventional.
And when did y'all get married?
We got married February the 14th of last year, 2021. So it was a short dating period.
Well, you know, especially at this age.
Yeah, so we met and we did a little dating and got engaged and married all within the whole COVID situation.
That's amazing. And I was talking about that. You all were featured in some print media about your courtship during COVID and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, there was so much negativity going on, sadness.
Yeah.
So there were reporters looking for positive and happy stories. Mm-hmm. And our story became known as the COVID love story, which was something positive. and we got featured in blogs. Bay News 9 featured us, Tampa Bay Times, the Florida Sentinel. Eventually, Steve Harvey featured us on his show as well. So we've gotten some coverage. I had no intentions of having a sensationalized love life, but I think it with positive purpose.
No,
so we're glad about it.
You all have inspired people, I know.
Thank you.
Even my cold single heart can now be hopeful that it's out there even for me, man. Now you're a new dad too. When was the baby born?
The baby was born February the 8th this year. So this would be about yesterday made 4 weeks.
Name?
Journey Adriana Harris.
And she's healthy and everything? She's good?
Healthy. She's a miracle child.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mom, I mean, there's just a story to everything that I'm involved with, seemingly. But, when the mom became pregnant, I think it was in June, 3-4 months later in September, mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So we had all kinds of concerns about the baby. Every day, every week, every month, we just didn't know what to expect. The short of it is, mom ended up having to have a surgical procedure in October. The baby survived it fine.
Good.
We had to wait on a few more test results to determine whether or not mom had to do chemo. Well, test results came back. She had to start chemo. She started chemo in December. So now we're really concerned about the baby. So the doctors told us that she had to have an early delivery. So they induced, and she was born early, February the 8th, and no problems. Passed all her tests. She was a preemie, didn't have to go to the NIC unit. She's been with me and her mom since she was born. No problem whatsoever. All praises be to God.
How's mom doing?
Mom is doing well. She's continuing to go through process of chemo, followed by radiation, which means, I'm caretaker for mom and caretaker for the babe, and trying to juggle a private practice and all of that good stuff. But hey, God graces you for the season.
I hear you, brother. Well, we gonna get in. I want to get into. I wanted to get into some of that stuff. First, you are a pastor and a lawyer at the same time. It is possible. I just want the audience to know that it is possible to be a man of God and a man of the law at the same time. Those things are not mutually exclusive.
I know some people
as bad as y'all talk about lawyers.
Some people think it's a contradiction to be a lawyer and a preacher.
But I want to talk about the preacher portion right now. Talk to me about how you got there, what the journey was, how it started.
Well, I'm a country boy. If you have not heard already that southern drawl in my voice, I'm sure you hear it now. Born in the country to parents who were Pentecostal pastors. My mom and dad pastored a Pentecostal church in Manchester, Georgia, which is rural Georgia. And just growing up as a PK, just kind of exposed me to the church and all the things involved with pastoring a church. And so I have 4 brothers and 3 sisters, and we were all just in church all the time. My dad had us in church 4 times a week, growing up Monday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, and Sundays, until later he started having service on Saturdays. And then when he started having service on Saturdays, we would be visiting other churches, either preaching or doing music on Sundays. So that was my life. So never really had a desire to be a pastor, but as I grew into my teen years, I developed interest in preaching and felt like I had a call as a teenager to preach. Started preaching all over rural Georgia as a young teenager, and that just expanded. Went to college, and once I graduated from undergrad, I went to graduate school, got a master's in divinity, Emory University, Candler School of Theology. And not that I intended to pastor, but I just wanted to, just become more educated. And as a matter of fact, this going in a theological program just kind of was a part of my own, I guess I would say, own search. Just trying to figure things out. Sometimes, when you're born at the cross and you grow up in the church, you go through a process where you're just try to deconstruct and reconstruct, and that was a part of that process. At the same time, it certainly was giving me more tools as a professional and as a preacher, and enjoyed every moment of it, except for the exam days, of course. But
I see all the time your and I watch them. I see your Facebook sermons, and I see you, and you are the type of pastor I like because I too am a country boy.
yeah,
And I grew up in North Florida. I didn't grow up in the big city of Tampa and all that. I grew up in North Florida, but I like smaller to medium churches that are expressive and that are kind of, you would call them old school now. Those are churches that I like. It just feels more authentic to me. That's just me. Doesn't mean that ain't everybody else. Before y'all call in and tweet me, that is just me, and that is my preference.
Yeah, personal choice.
And you have that vibe, and I like it. And in addition, I like my preachers to be able to sing too. Right? That's just, they got that extra thing in them, and you have it. And your brothers are musically, y'all are so talented musically. That I love to watch it. So you got at least one fan here.
I appreciate it.
Watching your stuff. Let's turn to the law now.
Okay.
You fully explained the path to preachers, path to pastor, I'll say. How did you become a lawyer? Why did you become a lawyer? And where are you at now?
Well, I don't know when the desire when the desire developed. I know from a child I wanted to be a lawyer, but I was discouraged because I grew up in rural Georgia, Manchester, less than 4,000 residents. And all the professionals that I saw who were African-American were either in the educational system as teachers or funeral directors or preachers, but I didn't see any Black lawyers or African-American in other professions. So I was discouraged. And so, and both my parents are educators, my dad and mom, teachers. My dad retired as a high school English teacher. My mom teaches as an early childhood teacher and adult literacy as well. So that is what I was exposed to. But I had this desire. And because I was not exposed to it, I kind of doubted myself. So, I went to undergrad, and as I stated earlier, when I graduated, I went to seminary, Catholic School of Theology. But when I actually matriculated successfully through seminary at Emory University, I'm like, maybe I can do this law thing. And I remember my dad advising me, maybe I should just consider education. And he did it because he didn't want me to go down a road that I, wouldn't be successful. And that was something comfortable and something he knew that he could really help me with because he was familiar. So I thought about it, but then I said, I'm going to apply. And if I get accepted, I'll go. And if I only survive 1 day, 1 week, I'll say that I went, And that's what I did. I applied, took the LSAT, got accepted, and started down the road. And, hey, I graduated. And I looked, and my first cousin married a guy who was just a Willie Gary fan. And I had several conversations with my first cousin's husband. And through him, I started to study Willie Gary, who, as we all know, is a top personal injury attorney. And then Johnny Cochran, who was a leading criminal defense attorney, was someone that I was able to study from afar. Because again, I didn't have that exposure in terms of lawyers in the Black community where I was raised. So I looked to these guys from afar, and they encouraged me and don't even know it.
Right.
Yeah. And then I started to meet other lawyers, a guy named Darrell Dowdell in Columbus, Georgia, came here to Florida, met Delano Stewart, who was a very strong inspiration to me. I think you know Dale very well. Yeah, and many, many other lawyers. I don't want to get into calling too many names
this
because
is a great story.
Because there are a lot of lawyers since I've started, including Dale Swope, who have encouraged my journey. So I appreciate that. And that's how it all started. And I did what I would not advise any lawyer to do. That is, pass the bar, hang your shingles. That's scary.
That's scary.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. Sometimes we do things because
Yeah.
we just don't know. But
Yeah.
God was faithful and held me up.
Yep.
And so I've survived as a private practitioner 12 years, starting by just getting my license and hanging my shingles without one client. Born and raised in Georgia, so I wasn't from this community, which was another.
Oh, they'll talk about you not from here, boy.
So I had to, develop a reputation and get involved in the community, and you swim or drown, and God has blessed me, and here I am today, 12 years later, still standing by the grace of God.
That's an amazing story, Norman. I didn't know that.
Yes, sir.
What type of law do you practice?
Primarily criminal defense, personal injury, and a little bit of music entertainment contract law.
Right.
Matter of fact, one of my entertainment clients is Shirley Caesar.
Oh, wow.
The gospel legend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that wrapped it all together, didn't it?
Yeah. I review all of her major contracts.
That's amazing. Are you a pastor of your own church?
Well, this year I am in the process of developing a church, Vertical Renewal.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's incorporated, and we are just in the beginning stages. We hope to roll it out and have our opening service sometime mid-summer.
Okay.
We haven't gotten a date yet, but that's in the works.
No, that's amazing. What does your dad think now, 12 years later, that you in this personal injury law game?
Oh, he's very.
How's it feel?
He's
got to be, yeah.
He's very proud, and he always would be dad and gives paternal advice and spiritual advice. I cannot say that proudly. I cannot say that I have done anything that has disappointed him, and so we're both thankful for that. He is the parent now that I have to say, Dad, don't go into doctors' offices and getting frustrated with nurses and saying my son is a lawyer.
Right. Ain't nobody suing nobody for you.
Right. And so he's a proud parent. Yeah.
Norman, talk to me about your community involvement. What do you do in the community? I know you do a lot. What do you do in the community? What brings you joy to be involved in the community here?
Well, I've always approached my profession as one that shouldn't be just for the money or, do my job, make money, go home. But I wanted to use my profession as a lawyer and as a preacher as a platform to do real community engagement. And one of the most helpful ways I found to at least make some sort of a segue in that regard is becoming a part of community organizations. Like I'm a part of Hillsborough Action Plan, we call THAP. I'm on the board there. I'm a part of Arts Conservatory for Teens, we call, for short, it's ACT. I'm no longer on the board with the NAACP, Hillsborough County chapter, but I served for some time on that. I've been on the board with George Edgecombe Bar Association, GBO, which you're a member of as well, the organization. I've been on the executive board for, I don't know, maybe 10 years in different capacities. And I found that being on these boards just a way of getting involved with organizations who have footprints in the community. The state attorney's office also has a racial justice workshop, which I was invited to be a part of. And we meet every month, and we talk with the state attorney's office. When I say we, it's me and some other community leaders. And just kind of advocate on behalf of the community and express some hopes and expectations. And that has worked out very well. Raising in by virtue of the fact that I'm a lawyer and do criminal defense work, it uniquely situates me as a part of that.
Right. And you Black.
And I'm Black. I can't hide that part. So,
Right.
And deny that part. Certainly Black and proud of it.
Let me ask you, we're getting to the end here, but I want to ask you this, given what I know about you and given what you've said today, I want to ask about politics a little bit. And I know that you're a relatively new husband, you're a new dad now. Time is very limited. And politics is one of those things that you all in or you all out, you're not in at all. Do you want to get into it? Do you see yourself there one day? Do you see that as an avenue of making a difference and giving back, or what do you think about it?
I do. I'll start with the last question. Do I see it as an avenue of giving back? I do. And I think that part of it can be maximized if the politician has a heart to serve more than for self-aggrandizement. So I did jump out there and run for public office. I think it was in 2018. I didn't make it, but it was a great experience for me. Made great contacts, and I was able to really, really learn some serious concerns in the community that I did not know before I got in the trenches in that way. So I appreciate that. At this point, I don't know if it's on my agenda to file to run again, no time soon, at least, maybe in the distant future, because I am married now. I do have a daughter, and I'm starting a ministry. So I do believe there are other ways to be equally involved and hopefully equally as advantageous to the community, in addition to running for public office. So I'm hopeful that the platform of ministry can be an expansion of my legal platform to get involved in the trenches and just help our people, you know.
That's a great answer. There's lots of ways to not only give back, but be a leader.
Yes, sir.
And if you believe the only way to be a leader is to run for office, then I think that person has a warped sense of what a leader is.
Yes, exactly.
There you can be doing all wonderful things in the community and not have one official title and be more of a leader than someone that's been elected.
Absolutely.
And it's just our community needs both.
I always say Dr. Martin Luther King never sat and said, I want to be a civil rights leader. I think he was just a servant. And when an opportunity presented itself to serve, he just took advantage of it. And what became of it is what became of it. But I think his heart was just to serve the community in whatever capacity he was able to do it.
Service, that's the word.
Yes.
And a lot of times in politics, people don't, it's called public service, but people forget the second part.
Yeah.
It's service.
Yeah.
And service sometimes ain't fun. Service sometimes is a sacrifice. Service sometimes you don't get thanked for it. Service
Absolutely.
sometimes you're not in the paper that week. Service sometimes is personally you have to sacrifice and financially sacrifice, but that's what service is.
Absolutely.
And no one's begging folks to run for office.
Right.
You're doing it on your own. And
Exactly.
so it is a sacrifice and a service, and you have a future in it if you want it, I believe. And that's why I asked the question, because
Yes.
someone that has the right approach to it and the right heart, I'm always a fan of, and you have that. And it's just,
I appreciate that.
I think it's the right time, right opportunity when you want to do it.
You know, I wish it was some way, which is not. I wish it was some way we can assume office to serve without the process that involves you know a lot
the politics, the campaigning is the
it's
I know what you mean. It's because the process to get elected isn't great, but once you get elected, you can do really good stuff.
right.
But the
right.
process by which you get elected to do things is rough and tough.
Yeah, and some people question the position because of the process.
Right.
You know,
Like I gotta get elected. So y'all I need money and I gotta get endorsements and I gotta do this. But if you get me elected, I promise you I'm gonna do good once I get there, but I gotta get there. And getting there requires me to run a campaign and do certain things.
Absolutely.
And sometimes people can't separate the two, but it's your job once you get elected. I always tell people they over complicate this. Running for office is you make promises. Once you get elected, you keep the promises.
right.
And
Just that simple.
it's simple.
Just
It's
that
simple. And we need to do more of that. Well, Norman, thank you for joining us. I'm going to let you get out of here because I know you've got stuff going on. But, brother, I just wanted to catch up, see where you're at. I love that story about the law and the pastor journey. I didn't know that. That was cool stuff. But, man, come back anytime. I appreciate you coming on today and joining us, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of
I'm
course.
always looking up to you.
Well, brother, I don't put that pressure on me. Don't put that pressure on me. But Norman, I love you.
We're two young brothers doing great things.
I've always been impressed by your heart for service because because you can see it.
Thank you.
And people can see it from afar. It's going.
And you're not just doing this for the podcast. You've encouraged me one-on-one. So
yeah, you were running
that.
to replace me in the legislature.
I was. I wasn't going to say that part. But.
I definitely, well, I was running for something else at the time too, but this politics thing, I hold it, particularly those that run to represent people that look like us. I hold those people to a really high standard when they come to see me and say that they want, because, you know, our people have the most need and can ill afford to have someone in a public office that just wants the honorable before their name and doesn't want to do it for the right reason. We can't afford to have that kind of person in office because we got too many problems.
That's true.
And it infuriates me when I see people that I believe don't have that right heart. But it also makes me really happy when I do see somebody that does have the right heart, and you've got it. So
thank you.
I appreciate it. Yes, thank you for joining Vanguards of Democracy. We will see you next time. Vanguards of Democracy is funded and produced by Vanguard Attorneys, a local personal injury law firm serving the Tampa Bay area with ingenuity and an indomitable work ethic. Don't forget to follow Vanguards of Democracy on YouTube or download episodes on your favorite podcast streaming services like iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And lastly, we're excited to announce that we're launching our new landing page, www.vanguardsofdemocracy.com, where you'll be able to ask questions, recommend guests or topics, and stay up to date with news and announcements. It'll be great. If you know how to bookmark a website, this is the one that'll make it worth it. Thank you.